Hey, what is up, everybody? Welcome to the Guilty as Charged podcast. My name is Steven, and I am the host, as always. Coming to you guys live on a Tuesday evening. The Dodgers are potentially wrapping up the World season. Hello, World Series. Freddie Freeman is on an insane heater right
Mm.
now. So Dodgers, I believe, are winning. Maybe that game ends while we're doing this podcast tonight, and if you're a Dodgers fan, good luck. I don't think we have many Yankees fans that we know of, but if you're a Yankees fan, good luck to you as well. I don't really care who wins as long as everybody has fun, I guess. Tyler is here and back after a wedding on Sunday. So it should be a lot of fun tonight getting him back, talking about the Chargers trade deadline wish list. So it should be a fun conversation. Tyler, man, how are you doing tonight?
The good news is Lad McConkey had a great game. Finally crossed 100 yards. The bad news is I wasn't there to watch it. Had to be at a wedding. And, of course, you got to go to the family weddings. But, boy, the Lad McConkey double Moss contested catch, 111-yard, 2-touchdown game. Would have loved to have seen that. But, hey, I'll take it. I'd rather not be there to watch him have a great game and the Chargers win than watch the Chargers lose, because last game I watched, they did lose. So, everyone, thanks a lot, said, never watch a Chargers game again. That's fine. I get it.
You know, people believe in their superstitions. I think I've said this on the show before, but my mom in particular has like an insanely poor track record of going to Utah away football games and Utah losing those games. So we like to give her a hard time for it. But at the end of the day, I don't think us as fans really have any effect over the games. It's just kind of luck of the draw at some time. So it is what it is. I hope everybody gets to attend wins when you do get to attend the games. Obviously, that would be great. So like I mentioned, we are going to talk about Chargers trade deadline wish lists. Unfortunately for the Chargers, somebody that we were going to be talking about today, Deontay Johnson, did get traded to the Baltimore Ravens. And so it's just unfortunate timing. We were going to talk about him. We had him included in our show. And we had heard from multiple people, actually, that the Chargers were talking to the Carolina Panthers about Mr. Deontay Johnson. And the really weird situation, it kind of seems like the Panthers just wanted to get rid of him. And I don't really understand what exactly happened there. They ultimately ended up settling with the Baltimore Ravens for a pick swap. Essentially, if the season continues like it's going to, the Carolina Panthers are shipping Deontay Johnson away to move up like 20 picks in the draft. So it's just really, really strange situation on their part. But there's been a lot of people, Joe Hortiz isn't doing anything this deadline. He's been a very, very busy man from multiple sources, and they did talk to the Carolina Panthers about Deontay Johnson. The Chargers did have an offer in for him, and the Panthers unfortunately just decided to go in a different direction this week. So Deontay Johnson is going to the Baltimore Ravens, and the rich get richer.
Yeah, that's a two-parter that totally sucks. The Chargers being involved, great. And yeah, so obviously they're looking for something. I don't get Joe Hortiz doesn't do anything. He's already traded for two people this season. That's not like he's already past Tom Telesco for trades. He traded up for Lad McConkey. I mean, he's very active, obviously. And I'm sure the Chargers would have loved to have landed Johnson. It is what it is. Only one team can. Offers are offers, whatever. So yeah, unfortunate, I guess, but I can't imagine that they're done or they don't have some sort of contingency plans. They do just have, and people have mentioned this, they just have guys returning or maybe stepping up. I don't think that means that they're satisfied, but it's not like they're going to lose players by not, having traded for Johnson. Their roster is going to get healthier.
Yeah, the roster is going to get healthier. This talk of like Joe Ortiz isn't doing anything. Everybody listening to this show wanted them to go get a different backup quarterback, and they did that. They made a very savvy move in acquiring Taylor Heineke. Nobody saw the Elijah Molden trade coming, and that has been fantastic. He's been awesome. I don't know if you saw what happened at the very end of the game, but I'm just kind of choosing to pretend that interception from Elijah Molden counted, and that the 12-year veteran Bud Dupree didn't have one of the stupidest roughing the passer penalties I've ever seen. So in my head, I'm just picturing that Elijah Molden has 3 interceptions because he's been awesome. And Tier Tart, who I've talked about a couple times on the show, he was a post-training camp addition, and he's been fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
So Joe Ortiz has churned over the practice squad. I think like 5 of the original 16 practice squad players are still on the practice squad. Every other spot has just been cycled through. So Joe Ortiz is extremely active. He is going to do whatever it takes to make this team better. But as somebody said in the chat, it takes two sides to agree to a trade. Sometimes you send a trade offer over, and that GM is getting a few trade offers, and they decide to send them. They send players away for a variety of reasons. Sometimes you send them to where a player wants to go, etc. So it does take two sides to tango here, unfortunately. But I can promise you on the validity of 2 or 3 different sources that Joe Ortiz has and will continue to be very active until next Tuesday's deadline.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's something we both could have definitely run with and can't, but definitely feel confident in saying that he was very, very active, of course, at least in one particular situation. And I'm sure in several more, as Jay Walt points out, just because a deal wasn't made doesn't mean an offer wasn't made. You can't get every player that you target, of course. Like, was there on one of the draft, what was it? One of the draft situations, like with the behind the scenes, all access, whatever things from this past draft, wasn't there some sort of move that the Chargers tried to make to move up at a different situation or move back?
Oh, on Hard Knocks, there was talk of the Chargers moving up and down because they were trying to see if they could trade down to get Joe Alt, but then ultimately the Titans wanted Joe Alt and the Giants wanted Joe Alt, and etc.
Yeah. So things are happening, and they just don't work out unless we know everything or get all the behind the scenes.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to spend any time on some individuals who report things and don't really know anything, but like JPA, ML football, like a lot of these guys are just kind of NFL rooms, probably Dove. Like they just throw anything out there to see if it sticks and take the broken clock is right twice approach rather than actually knowing anything.
Yeah. We can definitely touch on some of the other stuff. The Josh Palmer thing is from Tony Pauline. The Chargers are not trying to trade Joshua Palmer. The part about his report is that he's not a part of their long-term plans, so they're taking calls.
Sure.
That part might be true. They have literally zero reason to trade away Joshua Palmer. They do not have a wide receiver room that is healthy or reliable at this point outside of Vlad McConkey. But Joshua Palmer has made a lot of progress since getting healthy. Each of the last few weeks, he's gone up in yards per route run, up in yak per reception, up in average depth of target. So Joshua Palmer is he's not a volume based wide receiver, but he's becoming rather efficient. And we know that Justin Herbert trusts him tremendously. So the part about him not being in long-term plans, that might be true. They didn't draft him. They do kind of need a different kind of speed receiver at that spot. But he's playing really well. And from what I can gather, from what I am hearing, they do not have plans to trade him. Joe Hortiz, again, he will do whatever it takes to make this team better. And if he has to include Palmer to go get somebody, like I could see that. But they are not actively shopping Joshua Palmer.
Yeah, I would imagine so. I guess maybe if you acquire a Deontay Johnson or some other similar caliber player, then sure, I could see that making a and then this happens thing with Palmer.
Yeah,
but I don't see why you would. Not that Johnson is worse than Palmer. Or Palmer's better than Johnson, but I don't see why you would remove a big part of your offense and a receiver finally getting healthier to try to fix your receiver room. I don't really buy that.
Yeah, and regarding the whole like JPA and Dove and ML football, I, as a rule of thumb, would encourage everybody to not trust anything that they say. Anything ever. There was a thing a couple weeks ago that like the Broncos were the favorites to land David Njoku. And I actually reached out to a couple people in Denver and in Cleveland. And they did have talks about David Njoku, but back in the offseason. So ML football and these guys are recycling stuff from April to get clicks in October. They are not actually breaking news with these kind of situations. So I understand it's the name of the game. I mean, the Dove account is literally a fake account. I don't know if anybody else in here watched all the stuff from last season, but they bought an actual reporter's account and now they literally just make stuff up. They have zero sources. So if they do not have an actual face in their Twitter profile picture, I generally would stay away from relying on those accounts for information.
Yeah, I would agree. I get it. It's fun. It helps other sites get clicks. It's interesting to talk about, but follow the source, do your due diligence, just hang in there. I'm sure this next week is going to be a whirlwind.
Yeah, we got trade deadline day and election day on the same day. It's going to be a shit show on Twitter. So
Yeah.
make sure you have notifications on for the big reporters. But other than that, I don't think we need to like spend too much time on these guys who make up rumors for a living. And listen, like I would understand if people doubted me, but like we have obviously built relationships with people within the Chargers organization and outside of the Chargers organization. We're obviously not anywhere close to like Ian Rappaport by any means, but like we have some sources from time to time and they have given us some good information from time to time. And so when we get information and we can share it, we generally like to do that. It's a great reason why you guys can join the Discord. Okay, let's pivot away from that conversation and to people that the Chargers could actually potentially acquire and target. We do have a slideshow for you guys today. Before we get into all of that, of course, have to tell you that today's show is brought to you by our friends over at PrizePicks. It is the best and easiest way to get into daily fantasy sports. They've had great baseball specials. I'm not even a huge baseball fan, and I have been invested into the baseball specials. So it's been a great way for me to watch the World Series and get some extra cash from Freddie Freeman's home runs. It's been awesome for me. They obviously have great NFL stuff. That's what you are here for. It's a fantastic way to get some extra skin in the game. If you're not into the traditional fantasy world, it's a great way to make up for that space. Even if you are into the traditional fantasy world, PrizePicks can really help you get more involved and help the wallet out, as well as help our show out. Every time you go and support PrizePicks, it does support the Guilty as Charged podcast. So you can go to prizepicks.com/guilty, code guilty for a deposit match up to $100 and have a great time. All right, let's get into this. We wanted to start with a kind of a target requirement for the Chargers. It would be great if they had a ton of cap space and a ton of draft picks and could just go acquire whoever they wanted. Unfortunately, that is not the case in the cap space world. So the Chargers currently have $8.46 million in cap space for the rest of 2024. There's a couple things that they could do to restructure a contract here or there to free up some space if they need to. But for the most part, the Chargers, when they are calling teams about potential trade acquisitions, I think they are looking for players who are either on rookie contracts, maybe somebody who's kind of fallen out of the rotation, an expiring contract who would have a low base salary that they could just kind of inherit on the cheap, and then that player leaves in free agency, and that's it. There is a chance that they could acquire somebody who has like a low base salary for this year, and next year they have kind of a higher base salary because next year they are slated to have $77 million in cap space. And that could go up by $25 million by cutting Mr. Joey Bosa, who unfortunately looks even more injured than previously.
Ugh.
So for you, Tyler, when you're kind of weighing like, okay, realistic trade target versus resources here, what kind of criteria did you have that maybe is beyond what we have on the screen here?
It's tricky because so many, and I didn't really go into it with this criteria in mind, but it's really difficult. If you guys actually try to do this and find realistic options, it's so difficult to find the right team, contract. Okay, go find a losing team where someone might be buried on the depth chart, or the team is just terrible and they need to blow things up, that also like has this right finances where the money isn't too much this year because the Chargers are cap strapped, but maybe you can open it up next year. It was so hard to find several different pieces, and even pieces on teams that were maybe like okay or below average. Even those pieces that were available, the tricky part was there were so many injuries in the NFL this year to guys kind of further, like some of the better guys in the league, that these guys that maybe could have been trade targets before as like a buy low have been playing a ton. I mean, Tutu Atwell's got like 500 yards or whatever it is. Khalif Raymond is now super involved with Jameson Williams, whatever's going on with his life and that sort of stuff. You want to look at these different receivers like, oh yeah, we can go get that guy. But so many of these depth guys that could have been targets are so involved. It's tricky. And then just the teams, who's going to give up a player on these contending teams or these guys that think they're in contention? I mean, we're going to talk maybe about some Patriots players. I think it was Josina Anderson's reporting they're looking to buy a defensive lineman, an offensive tackle. Like these teams think they're going to contend, that they're a piece away. The Giants, they're not very good, but they can be very good eventually. They get a quarterback and all things are changed. Do they want to be selling all these guys? Maybe not, because next year they might get a quarterback. So it's so hard to find players. I didn't like, other than what you have here, the money requirements, the actual cap stuff for the Chargers, it was just difficult to find several different names the Chargers could go after that fit, and the league might want to give them up too.
Yeah, and I think the tricky part also is like figuring out how the rest of the league feels about that player. And obviously, we're not anywhere close to like again the big reporters or anything. But I think if you would have told people, like if somebody had told Ian Rappaport last week, hey, the Ravens are going to go get Deontay Johnson for a pick swap, they would have said, what the f- are you talking about? Like, there's no way that nobody's going to match better than that. Josh Uche to the Chiefs sucks. I hate it so much. But again, that's a player like he's on a cheap contract. He's productive. And the Chiefs are getting him for a 2026 6th-round pick. Like, if people knew around the league that that's what it would take, I think that there would have been more takers. I think the Chargers potentially could find that conversation interesting. But sometimes these GMs just like will take a bad offer and it makes no sense. So there's sometimes obviously some character concerns about the player, health things, etc., that we who are not insiders do not have the luxury to. So I think it's interesting for the Chargers, right? Because they're in this position where they maybe are exceeding expectations externally, but internally they probably feel like they're on track to be where they were supposed to be. And so if you're Joe Hortiz, you kind of have to figure out, do I want to send some assets that can maybe impact my ability in the long term to go out and draft some good players, right? And like, what does that exactly cost? So the Chargers are slated to have 10 draft picks next year. Does Joe Ortiz look at that and say, hey, like, I think I would rather have my next year's version of Cam Hart instead of going to get, somebody that can help me win this year when we're not necessarily in for like a Super Bowl type of run. So that's the other thing that is really important to measure, is that Joe Ortiz's job is not to fix the Chargers in 2024. His job is to fix the Chargers in 2024 and beyond. And sometimes it's difficult to justify certain deals when you're trying to, hey, 2025 could be the year, guys. And so it's an interesting spot for him to be in.
Yeah, it's tricky because he has performed well with acquisitions late in the season and with trades. We haven't seen a ton from Heineke, but we all support the move and understand the move and feels like it was a good move. Right. It's like, okay, acquiring players late with trades or whatever has worked. And with the Ravens, like, it has worked for them. At the same time, we just watched Cam Hart have another really good game and Tarheeb still have another really good game. So, okay, which day 3 pick are you giving up? Not that all their day 3 picks have been incredible, but now you're like, ooh, okay, well, on the other hand, I give Jesse Minter a day 3 corner. Hey, we can pull a starter out of this. So do I go get that other guy? And not that you can't rely on yourself to repeat the success of this past draft class, but you're probably feeling pretty good about yourself and your coaching staff.
Yeah.
So it's a tricky balance for sure.
Yeah. And as Michael points out, it would be very justified, in my opinion, if they looked at Jesse Minter's defense and said, hey, like we're missing an edge rusher or like a defensive tackle, pass rusher. Let's go do it. And let's make this number 1 defense even stronger. Or same thing with the offense. Like, okay, the receiver room looks a lot better now and Justin Herbert's healthy, but like, hey man, like let's go get some reinforcements here. So these are all things that Joe Ortiz has to consider in the next week and has been considering. All right, let's start with the pass rushers here. So we can talk about each of them. Some of these players have been mentioned by some of the reporters and some of them have not. So when you look at this list, Tyler, that we've kind of compiled, is there a favorite of yours or one that is maybe kind of a shot in the dark that you would prefer?
I mean, we've talked about Osa quite a bit, so I don't want to spend too much time on him, but that would be the favorite. I mean, it's the Chargers. If they want to go in anywhere, it's as an interior pass rusher, I think. But I think overall, regardless of who your favorite is, and I'll mention, okay, Zadarius Smith here, especially with the familiarity with the Ravens. They drafted him, the relatively inexpensive contract. I'm assuming now that Joey Bosa is not going to play another snap for a very long time for the Chargers. I at least think he shouldn't, based on now I didn't watch the whole game, but you sent the clips of him going out there to try to run a play, and he's clearly not himself. Was always going to be limited as is, but it almost felt irresponsible having him out there based on how he looked and how many injuries he's dealt with. So I think he doesn't play for a while. And honestly, at this point, I would operate under the assumption that he's not going to play another snap. And if he does, it's a postseason run sort of thing. His body's not right. And I don't think he's ready to go. So to me, someone like Zadarius Smith, who would be, I think Bud Dupree's been okay to fine, especially given the like we didn't expect him to be Joey Bosa or Khalil Mack, but I think he's been fine. But I think the Chargers really need to can double down with someone like Zadarius Smith. I know Thule had a better game. Khalil Mack was good as always. But I don't mind someone who had like a genuine 64, I think pressures it was last season, can still play. The money's generally worth it. I know it's odd to have a fifth edge rusher and invest so much, but I don't think Joey's playing anymore. I think they can still upgrade over Bud Dupree. And they seem to have no interest in a Tremont Morris Barash elevation. And he wouldn't be Smith by any means anyhow. So I think another edge rusher would be appropriate, even though it feels like a lot in the position. My assumption is that Joey Bosa is not playing for a while.
Yeah, it was honestly pretty sad to watch the tape of Joey's performance on Sunday. It looked like he was like maybe 60% healthy, maybe. And he was not nearly as explosive as he's been. He was not nearly as like fast off the ball. And then he also like tweaked something. It was really hard to tell on the all 22, but you saw him kind of like pick up his leg, and it looked just really unfortunate. So he injured something during the game, and he did not go back in. I wouldn't be shocked if we get to practice tomorrow and they decide to place him on injured reserve. So I think trading for an edge rusher is absolutely appropriate because, as we've talked about, Bud Dupree and Thule have not been great as pass rushers. They're great against the run. Both of them are defending the run at a very high level, although Bud did get a little too greedy and tried to strip Alvin Kamara when he should have just tackled him for a 2-yard gain. But so I think trading for an edge rusher is very appropriate, as people in the chat are pointing out. Arden Key for the Titans, I think, is pretty intriguing to me. He's not a Zadarius Smith or even a Jadeveon Clowney type. But the thing there is that he does have some inside-outside flexibility, and it's the contract. So he is under contract for next year, but it's like a $6.5 million base salary, very affordable that you can work into next year. This year they restructured him, so he's only on like a $1.8 million base salary type. So Arden Key to me is definitely somebody that is interesting.
Yeah, I agree.
And there's the Titans thing, as they picked up another Titans player today to put him on the practice squad. So we love former Titans, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know. I am curious how reluctant teams are to trade away players that are going to face them in about 2 to 3 weeks. But such as the NFL, I suppose. And if you're willing to sell, you're not looking toward the next week. You're looking to the next season. Only because I've seen it a couple of times, and given like how good he is. Any thoughts on like a Vita Vea type or something like that, which is a huge splash, huge splash. But I mean, technically his cap hit this year is 21 million, but any thoughts or consideration to something like that?
I love Vita Vea. I think it would be, him and Puna and Tyler Tartan and Tito Agbonia, excuse me. Nobody's running on the Chargers if that's your main four. Mm-hmm. But I think the Chargers need more pass rush. I think on a run defense front, they're pretty close to set. So I love Vita Vea, but I would be pretty shocked if that happens. The Buccaneers are
4-4.
They're 4-4. They're right in the thick of a division race. So that would be pretty shocking to me.
Yeah. I doubt it's possible, but I saw Chargers fans out, not in our chat, but just asking about, oh my god, the possibility of Vita Vea. I'm like, okay, well, wow. Did it ever cross your mind?
Yeah. Yeah. The other interesting one, again, the Ravens are trying to win a Super Bowl, but David Ojabo has been a healthy scratch since they got Yannick Ngakoue. I would at least make the call. Like, Ojabo's very unproven. You wouldn't necessarily know that that's like a legit upgrade, but obviously there's the Michigan connection.
Yep.
There's the Ravens connection. I would at least like say, hey man, Eric DaCosta, like what's your thought process here? Throw you like a 6th-round pick and call it good. And I think that would be a welcome addition for the Chargers as well.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind. That'd be an easy way to carry a 5th edge rusher without, well, it depends on what happens with Joey, but another edge rusher without feeling too caught up in the spending.
Yeah. And then the whichever Browns DT they don't want, they have Shelby Harris, they have Quinton Jefferson, and they have Maurice Hurst. Any of those guys, I think, would be upgrades in the pass rush department for the Chargers.
Yeah, no, totally fine there. The Browns could send basically anyone for their defense, and I'd be happy. So pretty cool there. Did Owusu Koromoa get ruled out for the year? It was a pretty rough injury, I believe.
Not yet, but he was carted off the field. And I was on a Browns show earlier. Denzel Ward was on. He's in concussion protocol with his 6th concussion since he's been in the NFL.
Wow. No, I definitely did not know that. That's brutal.
I did not. I knew he had a couple. I did not realize it was 6. So he will not be playing on Sunday.
Good player too. That's a bummer.
Yes. All right, next one here is secondary help. I do think this is a bit of an underrated need for the Chargers because Christian Fulton does have another hamstring issue. We don't know the details there, but he left the game and did not return. Obviously, Asante Samuel Jr. and Dean Leonard are on injured reserve. Asante, he's going to be missing this week and then should be back potentially, right?
Oh, geez. So Broncos, Cardinal. Yeah. So after this week, he could potentially be back. Okay.
Assuming he's healthy, that would help a lot, obviously. Although I don't think Cam Hart is losing his job. That man's playing fantastic. But Dean Leonard's out. Christian Fulton's been injured. They have Eli Apple on the practice squad. They have Sean Wade on the practice squad. I think they could stand for at least a veteran, depth piece. And then we've talked about Greg Newsome quite a bit here, but outside of Ronald Darby or Kaiir Elam, did you have anybody else you thought of? And what do you think of those potential 2 additions?
Not anyone else in particular. We kind of cycled through some of like the Lattimores and stuff in the off season. I think Elam is really intriguing, especially considering how they've done with Fulton and this idea of change of scenery. I mean, it feels like every DB they've plugged into their backfield has been awesome because of Jesse Minter, the scheme, and everything. I don't know what happened when they happened with the Bills. I wasn't like a huge Kaiir Elam fan, but I was certainly like happy if the Chargers had taken him at the time. And I think he just has that physical profile that would be really, really fun across from a Cam Hart. I don't know how long it would take to get him caught up to speed and whatnot, but I wouldn't mind that at all. And at this point, it's not like you have to trade a 1st-round pick for him or a 2nd-round pick for him. It's a player you can get as a low-risk flyer. It really does feel like a Joe Hortiz kind of move to go out and get an Elam. So while I don't expect him to be an all-pro immediately, you put him into the system, give him some time, especially if Fulton, just those injuries that have, hampered him in the past, continue to bug him. Wouldn't mind it because I think Cam Hart is locked in. He's as the 1 or the 2, whatever, depending on who's out there. But I wouldn't mind another stable body across from him, or at least backing him up.
Yeah, and the good news about him not penning out in Buffalo is that he has a lot of special teams experience now.
There you go.
This isn't a usual 1st-round pick who never plays on special teams type of player. So as Kevin points out, he's been in the trade rumor mill for 2.5 years, I feel like. So I don't know if I'm the Chargers, I absolutely would make this call just because you don't really know how many avenues you have to potential cornerback play. And if you can get this guy in here, similar like everybody else that they've got going on, he still has the talent. It's just, the situation might be, a bit much for him in Buffalo. I don't know. So I think you make that chance. I put Ronald Darby on here, obviously, because he has the scheme familiarity. Sure. And so he could theoretically start like right now. Like if they traded for him today, he could go out there and play a game if they needed him to, because he knows the defense. He's been in the league for 9 or 10 years, I think. The coverage numbers have been not great this year, but at the same time, he was playing alongside Tyson Campbell, and then Tyson Campbell got injured. So he went from the number 2 cornerback to the number 1 cornerback. He's playing in Jacksonville, where there's a bad defense, bad offense, bad situation, everything. So again, you get him into a better situation. Maybe things change a bit here. And then he can provide some short-term stability also, because he is under contract through next season. So the Chargers obviously have Asante and Christian Fulton, who are free agents, heading into next season with, Tariq Still, Cam Hart, Dean Leonard, and Jasir Taylor. Like, I think you probably want to have somebody else and then draft. But, if you get Ronald Darby in here, that can provide some flexibility for you next offseason as well.
Any consideration to your previous draft crush, JC Horn?
I mean, yeah, 100%.
I don't know how much the Timbers are sellers, but it would be for his 5th-year option next year, which would be pretty nice.
I think it was Jordan Schultz said that they are basically listening for everybody except for JC and somebody else. I forget who he mentioned, but it was like 2 players. Oh, it's Chuba Hubbard. He was basically like, everybody else is up for grabs except for their 2 best players this year. So that makes sense.
Yeah, Hubbard, man, he's like 5th in rushing yards over expectation. Like, he's having, God bless him for being productive and good in Carolina.
Yeah. So I think cornerback, you mentioning players that were hard to find. Corner was like, okay,
yeah,
I could see the Chargers calling, but like, who are you calling about? So that was, this was the hard position for me.
Yeah. I mean, even, I don't know how long Patrick Surtain was in trade rumors for. I feel like after the first year, he was always like in a deal for something to move up or to forget a quarterback or whatever. And the Broncos, like, they weren't very good. They didn't have much on a quarterback, but they never budged on him. Like, it's very hard to find a good, not Pat Surtain's a one of one,
right?
But most people aren't giving up their starting corners.
Yeah, it's a tough spot. Recently, there's not a ton of great corners in general. So
no.
Okay, Will Dissly support is how we are tied on this page. We mentioned David Njoku a bit here. I strongly doubt that he is actually available for trade, especially after like Jameis Winston coming in and kind of rallying the troops there. What are your thoughts about a potential David Njoku trade?
Before, when he was on his rookie contract and, maybe not part of their plans, awesome. I think we've talked about Njoku for 3 years now. But at this point, hey, look, they get David Njoku. I'm buying my Super Bowl ticket, or should I say my mom is going to buy my Super Bowl ticket and we'll be there. No, I'm kidding.
There you go.
But that would be awesome. Trust me, that would be awesome. But much like, I don't know, a Jalen Waddle that people have thrown out there, that's really cool, dude. I'd love to have them on the team. I don't believe they're available, and Waddle less so, that I've seen that one. But Njoku, it'd be great. Trust me, it would be awesome. But the Browns, they're 2-6. I don't know how much in contention they think they are, but there's a lot of pride in that building. They have obviously a huge win. They just got over the Ravens with Jameis Winston at quarterback. They're going to try and go win. I don't think they're going to give up David Njoku, who, by the way, would play them next week.
Yeah, that too. I think it's different because like Amari Cooper wanted out, and David Njoku, at least publicly, has not gotten to that point yet. But if you're the Browns, right, like, okay, so next offseason, you're going to move on from Deshaun Watson, but they're not just going to like blow it up. Like, they're going to want to continue to win and potentially try and win. And, Kevin Stefanski, I'm sure he's going to feel some pressure in the offseason to be like, okay, the Deshaun Watson thing didn't work out. Let's get back into the playoff hunt. And, they're not going to just stand by and go draft Carson Beck or something in a bad quarterback class. Like, they're probably a Gardner Minshew team. If Matthew Stafford becomes available for trade, like, that's the kind of stuff that the Browns are going to do. They're not just going to kind of blow it up. And David Njoku is their best player on offense right now. So I think that's the thing there. The two realistic ones for me, Austin Hooper, who's their tight end 3 up in New England. He's making $1.2 million this year base salary. The passing numbers are actually pretty decent in terms of his yards per route run, yards after catch, average after target. He's kind of similar to like a Hayden Hurst, but I don't know how much we can rely on Hayden Hurst. He did
Right.
practice this week, but he's been injured as well a couple of times. I think he's dealt with something this so far this season. So Austin Hooper, I think, is at least interesting enough to me where even if you have Hayden Hurst coming back, you can go get Austin Hooper, and then Eric Tomlinson can get the hell off my screen.
Oh no!
Like, what?
Was he
Stop.
bad?
He's fine as a blocker, but like they're throwing him passes, and like there's just zero chance that he is catching anything right now.
Oh man, brutal. Okay,
That's a little mean, but I'm just, like every time that they throw the ball to Eric Tomlinson, something bad, something like tragically bad almost happens.
Like
really
Jalen Rieger for most of the last 2 games until he had the best catch of the season, which is great, awesome. Yeah, but I'm totally down for that. Like if they imagined and they want to continue with Will Dissly being his role and maybe an uptick in targets now because I think he's earned the right.
Yeah,
And then keep a Hayden Hurst kind of guy, veteran, 300 to 400 yard pass catching option. Fine. Like I think Austin Hooper would be just fine. I believe he was a Raider before, so finally the Chargers can take a former
he was
Raider.
a Raider, yep.
He's also a former Titan, so it would fit
That's
the theme
right.
once again.
That's
so
right.
Bring him on.
Yeah. Kevin says the fact that another Tomlinson on our team is this bad is a slap in the face.
That's what we get for letting LT go to the Jets.
Yes. But my favorite option here is Daniel Bellinger, young player who's being surpassed from Theo Johnson, which I can kind of understand. But to me, Daniel Bellinger showed some really interesting, athletic traits as a rookie. He averaged 5 yards after the catch per reception in the last 2 years, has some vertical ability as well. And I think that kind of tight end has a lot of flexibility for me because heading into next offseason, then you would have Dissly, Bellinger, and then potentially you go draft somebody who's your future tight end one, and suddenly you feel really good about your tight end room. So Bellinger to me is just like an intriguing long-term piece because he's the tight end 3 in New York right now. They're a bad team. They have Theo Johnson, who they really like. I would be in favor of this move just for the long-term potential here. I do think there was some really fun flashes from him as a rookie and as a second-year player.
Yeah, I'm all for that. I think that makes a perfect bit of sense. Of course, it's not a David Njoku or some other, first round pick kind of tight end type, but it really fits. Obviously fits Andy Bischoff, the Chargers' current tight ends coach. That connection there makes it very easy. So I'd be all for it. And he's from San Diego State, so we can pull some fans from San Diego.
Yeah, it really, like the Andy Bischoff thing, I think is potential there too, because he was in his first season in New York, I think, when they drafted Bellinger. So that was like his big project, right? Was Bellinger. So
yeah,
interesting them there. I thought about bringing up Luke Musgrave, but he is currently injured. So it's unfortunate.
Also that, I feel like half the names I looked up are like, and he's injured. So that was a bummer.
Yeah.
I'd definitely be for it. I don't know all the full story of the Packers and why it's not working out as much. Tucker Kraft's been great.
Yeah.
But Musgrave, is he not tight end too when he's healthy?
He is tight end too when he's healthy. And they use him a good amount. There's a really nice synergy between Musgrave and Kraft when I have watched the Packers, because Kraft does all the dirty work as a blocker, and then he's kind of your short intermediate guy. And then Musgrave they'll use as like a legit like X receiver, vertical type of receiver sometimes. So yeah, it works really well together. He's just not been healthy.
We didn't include Hunter Henry on here. Did you consider him at all? His cap hit this year is 5.3 million. The next 2 years, 10.5 and 11 million.
I did. Obviously, the reunion stuff would be cool. I just like, you mentioned Josina Anderson's report. The Patriots, I think, would want to keep Henry around Drake May at this point.
Correct.
I would have a hard time picturing that. I think they could trade some pieces, right? Like I have Austin Hooper on here, but Hunter Henry and Kendrick Bourne, like those are the two main guys for him when they're healthy. So I just have a tough time picturing them trading, their top target for their quarterback.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I had forgotten until today that he had a new contract as well, and I just don't see it. It'd be nice, it'd be fun, of course, for that reunion, but dang, Hunter Henry is a Patriot logo? Never mind. No, I can't do it.
Is that real?
Only thing worse is the Raiders logo.
He has a Patriots tramp stamp?
I Heart Bill or something.
Yeah. Hayden asking a question about Evan Ingram. Any thought there?
Is he available? I don't know what his contract stats are.
I think he's in the first year of his contract.
Yeah. Evan Ingram.
Yeah, he signed a 3-year, $42 million contract this offseason. So
yeah,
he is unavailable.
Cap hit 2025's cap hit is $20 million. So that's a lot for Evan Ingram, man.
That is a lot for Evan.
Now, $0 guaranteed. So
interesting.
I don't know how the Jaguars. I ain't the cap guy, so maybe. But yeah, $20 million in 2025 is nuts.
I like Evan Ingram, but man, that's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah.
Okay, last section here is the wide receiver talk. Unfortunately, we were really going to talk about Deontay Johnson.
We were.
So that one just that was a slap to the face. But the receiver group that is available for trade is not great, you guys. You're talking about Darius Slayton. The projected cost is a 6th rounder, according to the New York Giants athletic reporter. And then Micah Arfolo came out today and said, if they're going to trade Slayton, they've got to be blown away for a trade. So I'm like, I don't understand that at all, but he's on my list 100% at this point in time. He's probably the number 1 receiver available via trade.
Probably agree. I'm slightly perturbed by the comments towards Justin Herbert. I don't think they were necessarily a direct Herbert attack, but they are still there. I'm just going to say it before somebody brings it up.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, it was really, this was the hardest group for me to find somebody. It's like, okay, let's go get the Chargers a receiver. Who is a potential option? Nobody. There really wasn't anybody out there. Yeah, of course, I'd love to trade for Justin Jefferson, folks. I'd love to go get Jamar Chase and all these guys. None of these guys are available, or the guys that aren't expensive are on their rookie deals, and that's the whole point. Of course, I'd love to go get some of these guys. These other teams aren't letting go of them. They're producing well on cheap deals, on rookie deals, on day 3 deals. It was so difficult to find these guys. So as much as we'd love to get one of these guys, our list is the ghost of Deontay Johnson at this point, Darius Slayton, who said he hates Justin Herbert, Mike Williams, and KJ Osborne. That's our actual list, guys. And I appreciate over 300 people here waiting for our big reveal of who it could be. There's just not much available, guys.
Yeah, I'd be in favor of Darius Slayton, but again, Joe Hortiz is not going to go out here and make a trade that's going to cost them a lot and have to blow away the New York Giants. So it just is interesting to me. We talked about Mike Williams. We're in favor of the move potentially, but him and DJ Chark kind of do the same thing. They kind of play the same role. I don't know how that would really work out. The more that I've thought about it. If DJ Chark does not get activated this week, he would have to go on injured reserve. But then, yeah, like at that point, I think Mike Williams is more interesting to me. There was also a thing from Ian Rappaport that said that they're not just going to give him away, that apparently they have plans for him after he made a big catch against the Steelers, but then also they lost to the Patriots. So I don't know, maybe Mike Williams is available for the Chargers. I don't know how much I'm interested in that trade the more that I've thought about it, honestly, unfortunately for him.
Garrett Wilson, Devontae Adams, and Lazard, who only works with Rodgers, and they lost to the Patriots. You aren't holding on to Mike Williams so you get some incredible this or that. One, I don't have a particular name here, but when one person's traded to another team, I always look at the team they got traded to. So Deontay Johnson is obviously on the Ravens now. Is there anyone on the Ravens? Now, you might just say no straight up because of the list I'm about to give you, but Nelson Aguilar, Tylan Wallace, Tez Walker, any of these, or maybe even Charlie Kolar, if they don't think they're going to be throwing to tight ends as much. Do you find any of those names intriguing because now there's less of a spot for them to get targets?
Not just because it would be really funny for Alex, but getting
Oh, we got to do it.
having Nelson Aguilar and Jalen Rieger on the Chargers at the same time would just be worth it for Alex's reaction alone, I think. But in all seriousness, he does kind of fit what they need. Like they need some speed, they need some vertical route running and separation. I wouldn't hate it, man. For your wide receiver 3, I would not be opposed.
Yeah. Oh God, how do I even get into this? Jalen Rieger actually fulfills the role that they kind of want on offense for Darius Davis, because you can actually probably throw the ball downfield to him as a big air quotes, legitimate receiver.
Dude, that catch was sick though.
It was awesome.
It was awesome.
Zach Williams, who? It was a sick catch. It was awesome. So was the other catch before he fumbled it the previous week. But yeah, that would be great. Rieger and Aguilar would be interesting.
Yeah, that would be funny for the reactions alone. We're gonna have to message him after this and suggest it in the group chat.
Yeah, I'll trade you. You get Kamani Vidal. You finally get your running back. The alternative is you also got the 2 receivers that have haunted you in Philadelphia.
Yeah,
Thomas Martinez, literally perfect timing.
Yep. In all seriousness, I would not be opposed. I think Aguilar, yes, like there's some drop history to him, but it's difficult to find receivers who are good on the trade market right now, unfortunately. KJ Osborne was mentioned. He was good in Minnesota, but he hasn't really done much in New England. So I don't know. I would have to do more research there. But, you know, we headed into this trying to bring up players that are actually like considered available, you know, from the reporters, from beat writers. So like there was a question earlier about John Mechie. Stephon Diggs just tore his ACL. So John Mechie is like wide receiver 2 now in Houston. There was a question about Jalen Hyatt. They just drafted him, and I don't know. He's not been very good. Chico Okonkwo, I'd be a huge fan of. Again, former Titan, you know, would make a lot of sense. Is he available? We haven't really seen anything yet, but yes, I would be a fan of that. So we tried to keep this among like the players who have been mentioned publicly as available. Yeah,
it's tricky. I mean, that was a perfect example with John Mechie. Like, yeah, oh my gosh, let's go get one of these players. Oh wait, the guys in front of him are hurt. Now they have to play meaningful snaps. It's just it is tricky. So that's what we got, guys. Yeah, someone's gonna just go to this part of our show and see Deontay Johnson, Darius Slayton, Mike Williams, and KJ Osborne. Sorry, guys. I'd love Jalen Waddle on the team, but it ain't happening.
Yeah, man. Like, I would love Marvin Harrison Jr.
97
120 yards.
Yes. 1997's Randy Moss, Chris Carter duo or whatever. Let's go. Bring him back from the Vikings. Yeah, no, that'd be great. Yeah. So wide receiver wise, it just kind of feels like they don't really have a ton of options here. I didn't really consider Nelson Aguilar before today. Maybe that's their new thing, but it does just kind of feel like now that Deontay Johnson is gone, maybe they're just going to kind of wait and see what it looks like with DJ Chark back. Yeah. Which again is not to say that we wouldn't like an upgrade or the Chargers wouldn't like an upgrade. We just said they were trying to explore the Deontay Johnson sweepstakes. But, you know, they also might want to see how this goes with the current group. Yeah. We didn't mention any running backs, but did you consider that at all? Because I know we all love Kamani Vidal, but they're not really playing him a ton. I'm a little concerned about the J.K. Dobbins usage just because of the injury history. Any thought there about trading for a running back? No, I had originally made a slide where we could maybe talk about running backs because I don't know, like, not that it's all on J.K. Dobbins, but it hasn't been the same as the first 2 weeks, right? And not that I expected him to sustain that, but he hasn't. So there's a couple different avenues they could go. I'm always championing Rachaad White as a receiving option. Hasn't quite been the same runner, although he's been much better the past few weeks. but the Chargers could use a guy who's top like 5 or 10 in every receiving category. That'd be fun. But again, the Bucs aren't selling. So there goes that one. Chuba Hubbard was literally the first guy I thought of, did 5 seconds of research and went, crap, not happening. Because again, like a guy that's 5th in yards, rushing yards over expectation per attempt, that'd be awesome. Not happening. Khalil Herbert, of course, like again, the Alex experience continues. Perhaps that'd be amazing. Do they want to get rid of him? I don't know. So I'm not opposed to running back. It's just there's not a ton on bad teams that are available. But I wouldn't be opposed because I think this rushing attack, it'd be good to have another guy.
Yeah. I think the usage for JK is like my main thing here because the whole like Gus Edwards was not great, obviously, but he did the stuff that kind of allowed JK to stay fresh. And across the first 4 weeks, JK Dobbins I think was 5th in the league in rushing yards over expectation and like 8th in rushing yards over expectation percentage. And now it's kind of like below average in those regards. So I would like to see them trust Kaimani a little bit more, or potentially go get some kind of other back, because we don't know when exactly Gus is going to come back, and even if he is going to come back, we don't know what that's going to look like. So in the back of my head, I'm kind of considering, okay, maybe they do make a trade for a running back here, but then again, what kind of running back are you looking for? Are you trying to get somebody to replace Gus? Are you trying to get somebody to replace Kamani? That one's a tough one to sort out.
Yeah, I definitely agree there. And I don't know. There's a world where Gus Edwards actually comes back from his injury and is officially healthy, and he's really good. I don't know. It's very possible. So maybe they feel that way. It's not a bad backfield. I wouldn't mind another one there. We didn't touch on the interior offensive line. To me, it's more of they're kind of stuck with their options thing, and I wouldn't want to break things up. Now that they're getting any better, but I wouldn't want to break up this trio in the middle as they maybe are starting to round into form. But I think it's just too late for this group to get any new players, or there's no one available.
Yeah, if you're Joe Hortiz looking at this interior offensive line, like, you need to ride out the Zion Johnson experience. I know it's frustrating, and Alex and I addressed that on Sunday. But if you're them, like, you just got to keep hoping that guy figures it out, because that avenue is the best possible chance for you to like not have that need on your board in the offseason. Bradley Bozeman is beloved by this team, like after we saw on Sunday.
Yeah.
I don't think like the pass protection merits that point, and there's been a lot of issues with like free rushers still to this point, but he's a captain on the team. They went out and sought him out. Like, I don't think he's going anywhere. Could you go trade for a backup center? Maybe, but like, who's really doing that? Like,
Right.
Oluwatimi from the Seahawks was mentioned as a potential trade piece from the Seahawks beat writer. There's obviously the Michigan connection there, but he's a healthy scratch in Seattle every single week. So like, does that really fortify your backup center? Probably not. And then Trey Pipkins, like, they're paying him a lot of money. It's not been like awesome as a right guard. I think it shows that he's never played guard before, but for the most part, I think he's been fine. And when he does make a mistake, it's not like a bone crushing mistake like with Zion and Bradley. So it's the best case scenario for the Chargers on the interior is that they are rounding into form, maybe. The other aspect of this, since 2020, there have been 3 offensive line trades in the NFL during the season, and only one of those players was a starting caliber player, and that was Ezra Cleveland. Everybody else, like, you do not trade starting offensive linemen. Like, that's kind of general consensus for the league. There was one offensive tackle trade in the last 5 years, and that guy was a backup being traded to a different team to be a backup. So it's very difficult to trade for offensive linemen.
Yeah. I was curious when they traded Laramie Tunsil, but that was 2019. So
yes, and that was the off season. So
yeah. It'd be nice, but no.
Yeah. But this team has $100 million in cap space potential next year. they're going to spend on some offensive linemen, I think.
Oh yeah, no, I don't doubt that. At least one big name.
Yeah. Oh, Cam Robinson did get traded today. My mistake. So Cam Robinson today was the first starting offensive tackle to go be traded in the middle of the season in the last 5 years.
Okay, so one of the last 400 possible in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
Cool.
So my bad. Good trade by the Vikings, though.
Yeah.
All right, Tyler. Any other final thoughts before we head out?
I have done this kind of episode 5 years now. This is the first year I actually think they would do a trade. It's the most I believe they would make a deadline trade. And we just went through our list, and I don't feel great about most of them. But I'll take anything. Like, genuinely, if they go out and just acquire a Bellinger, like a depth piece, I'd get it. I'd trust Hortiz. I'm sure it'll be for great value. So if they find someone, awesome. If they don't, I genuinely believe that they tried and it just didn't work out, and it's okay. Next year's the more of the all-in year, but it would be nice to have a guy this year.
Yeah, I agree. I understand and agree kind of with a lot of the stuff about needing an additional weapon, and I understand it, but you know, I do think this team is going to kind of look at DJ Chark coming back and Quentin Johnson coming back and thinking like, okay, like we can be a little patient here with the wide receiver room. So we'll see what happens. I would not be shocked if they went on and traded for an edge rusher, depending on exactly the Joey Bosa situation. I think that to me is more likely than a wide receiver trade at this point in time, given how the pieces they have potentially coming back. So stuff to keep an eye on for sure. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that episode. If you are listening to this, make sure and leave us a rating or review on your podcast platform of choice. If you are watching us on YouTube, make sure like, comment, all that good stuff. I forgot about a couple of super chats. My apologies. We'll touch on those really quickly. From Chris Lewis, I respect Will Dissly, but boy, Brock Bowers would look great in gold and powder blue. Did you see he's on pace now to break the receiving record, period? Not just like
really?
Rookie? Yeah, he's on pace for like 190 catches.
Holy cow. Listen, the generational thing with the best tight end prospect you had ever studied thing was correct. Like that was Brock Bowers as advertised. Kyle Pitts here and there, but Brock Bowers has been as advertised. Again, of course, he goes to the Raiders. Of course, we'll have to deal with him for the next 15 years. Yeah. But hey, he was good. Like we had him over Joe Alt. We had him, I think we maybe even had him graded better than a Malik Neighbors potentially, but tight end versus receiver. Brock Bowers was awesome.
I had him second behind Marvin. That was my 1 and 2. So I thought very highly of him then. It sucks that he plays for the Raiders. It sucks that Tom Telesco got to draft him. At least he doesn't have a real quarterback quite yet. So
breaking the receiving record with freaking Gardner Minshew should send you to the Hall of Fame instantly. Like that is nuts.
Yeah. John in here said, just wanted to thank you for the outstanding content you produce. Well, thank you, John. We appreciate the big super chat and the very kind words there.
John, wonderful name, wonderful super chat, wonderful comment. Thank you for being in here. Appreciate you watching.
Yes, John is a very common Haglin name. I know it's obviously your father's name, so great name. Last one from Nicholas. I really like Fehoko at wide receiver, or Fahuku, as they called him on Sunday the entire day. I would much rather a great pass catching tight end.
Yeah, I still don't understand how they can look at that name and get it wrong. Like gun to my head or like my family's life on the line, I would look at that and go, yeah, Fehoko, easy. For whatever reason, every broadcast thinks it's Fahuku. Very underrated guy for sure. He's literally the perfect end of roster receiver to have. I think he's awesome. I think he should stick around next year too.
Yeah, he's a great special teams player. Also, like Ryan Ficken has turned him into an awesome gunner. He's always down there making plays. So he blocks well. He makes catches when given the chance for the most part. I still think that was a touchdown on Sunday, by the way, but it is what it is. All right. Appreciate the 3 super chats from you guys. Appreciate all of you here in the live chat. It's been a great one. Hopefully you guys have a wonderful evening. We are not going to be live on Thursday. It is Halloween, so both of us have Halloween plans. So hopefully you guys have a great holiday, and then we'll be back on Saturday where we will do our usual preview show, and then we'll take some questions as well, as we always do for a Saturday show. And then we'll be back on Sunday afternoon for the Browns recap. All right, that's going to do it for us today. This has been the Guilty as Charged podcast. As always, bolt up.